Well, hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Tuesday night Principal Chiro broadcast from DE and Band of Brothers, man. Hope everybody's having a great week, or at least start to a week, and knows what's coming up. So we'll just give you a little bit of heads up. August 12th, 15th. We'll put that up there. We got our DE coming up in Atlanta, which is always awesome, Marietta. And then we're going to be in October at Atlanta too. October 21st, which is Thursday. GCC is doing their fourth annual Cairo Cup. I need to start hearing who's coming down to or coming up to play in the tournament with us. It's an absolute blast. I know Moriarty, Martinez, and Judson better be there. They were there last year. We had an absolute blast. So if you have no plans, just get in Wednesday night, and then we'll do a golf tournament Thursday morning, and then we'll go straight to DE from there. So, and then obviously then we're going through, and we have Sarasota's coming up after that, but we'll get to that after. Tonight we got a special treat, man. A guy from up in New Hampshire, man. I'm not sure if everybody knows who he is, but he's been doing a lot with us with ICA, and just a super cool dude. Great chiropractor from up in New Hampshire again, Dr. Matt Swiesz. I don't even know if I say that name right. So he'll tell us his name. Let him introduce himself. So, Matty, take it away, man. We appreciate you doing this, and thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. It's right. It's Dr. Matt Swisz from New Hampshire, and I was very honored to be asked to do this. I haven't done this before, so bear with me. I might be a little rough around the edges, but I'm gonna give it my go. Tonight what I want to talk about is basically two things. I want to tell my story, and I also want to talk about serving not just our patients, but also chiropractic in general. My journey in chiropractic, I've always said that chiropractic chose me. I didn't choose chiropractic. When I was high school, no idea what I wanted to do. College, I went in like undeclared business and didn't really know what I wanted to do at all. And one day this girl comes up to me and she's like, "So what's your major?" I'm like, "Well, I'm undeclared." She's like, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "Well, I was thinking to do business." She's like, "Do you like that stuff?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, what do you like to do?" I'm like, "Well, a lot of my classes right now, my entomology class is probably the funnest class I have." And she was like, "So why don't you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And just, I'm kind of one of those guys who like just takes the ball and runs with it. And next thing you know, I changed my major to entomology. And if you don't know what that is, it's kind of weird. It's the study of insects. My goal was to do research for agriculture, and kind of along the way, I had to change all my courses from pre-business to science. I had to take like chemistry and biology and physics, like all at once, so I could kind of get out. I still had one extra year. I went 5 years instead of 4. And during college, I met my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. And coming at the end of graduation, and I realized that most people with an entomology degree don't do agriculture. What they do is pest control. And I'm like, I am not doing that. So now I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? So I was just kind of sitting around, and all of a sudden, it just came to me. I got to go see what a chiropractor does, because I wanted to be in the health field, but I didn't want to do medicine. And I had no idea what a chiropractor was. All I knew is that my friend went because he was in a car accident. And that was it. And so this is no lie. I literally went to the library. They actually had a book on it. I opened it up, and they talked about subluxation and the whole premise of chiropractic. And I was like, that just makes total sense. And then my next journey was, because there was no internet. This is a long time ago. I'm old, right? This is like 1993 or 1994. I had to go to the Career Development Center to pull out a career book and find, like, it was like a phone book. I found Palmer College, and I called admissions, and I'm like, what courses do you need to, or what major do you need to go? And they're like, you don't need a specific major, just as long as you have these courses. And she laid them all out for me, and man, I had every single one but one. And I was like, oh my God. I'm going to do this. And so I stayed one more year and got that extra course. And that extra year actually allowed me to stay at the university with my wife, because she was a year behind, or 2 years behind me, a year behind me. So she graduated at the same time. And where I'm saying that chiropractic chose me was, if I didn't change my major to entomology and have all those courses, I would have never pursued it. If someone said to me, you're basically going to have to do like 90 credit hours of all this science that you don't have, I wouldn't have pursued it. But since I already had it under my belt, and it was such a weird way for me to get it in the first place, I'm like, oh my God, like this is just meant to be. So I go to Palmer with my then girlfriend, and she's just working at a daycare, and I'm going to classes, and I meet a chiropractor. His name's Michael Forbes. He's in New Hampshire, and he's, I'm 2 towns over from where I lived. Only met him once. And then my wife decided she wanted to be a chiropractor, but she didn't want to go to Palmer. So we transferred unknowingly the differences of school. Since I don't know anything about chiropractic, she didn't like living in Iowa with her daycare experience. So we moved to NYCC, which, I'll get to it, wasn't all that bad. We went there. We ended up matriculating at the same time, so we would graduate at the same time. But it was a shock to go from Palmer to NYCC. I mean, I didn't know there was a difference of schools until I got there. And then I was like, wow, this is not what I was hoping it was going to be like. So what ended up happening, why I'm saying it was almost a blessing, was that you had to go out of your way to learn philosophy. Like we would drive to Rochester or Niagara Falls or Syracuse to some great docs like every Thursday night to learn adjusting, learn philosophy. And I think if I would have stayed at Palmer, I probably wouldn't have pursued it so hard. And so once again, I feel it was just all part of like kind of like the grand plan. And when I graduated, we went back to New Hampshire to open up our own practice. Now, at the time, and someone would probably tell you now, I don't really have any business skills. And I was very, very uncertain of myself at the time. But my wife, who is amazing, was like, no, we're opening our own practice. And I'm like, really? We're in all this debt. We're just going to take out another loan and just start from scratch and just try and figure it out. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. I'm like, well, while I'm there, I'm thinking, oh my God, there's that guy I met at Palmer. He would have graduated just around the same time as me. So I call him up, find him in the phone book. He'd been in practice. And he's like, you have to come with me. And at the time, him and maybe 20 chiropractors in New Hampshire and Massachusetts were all members of the waiting list practice with CJ Mertz. Some of you might have heard it before. I think he's still coaching. But what that did is that just launched me. Like it was almost like a mini DE. We had 20 people that would get together weekly and train, and they just showed me the way. Like I did not reinvent the wheel. All I did was they would say, you do this, and that's what I did. And it allowed me to get up and running and profitable in like 6 months, which it definitely would not have happened if I didn't have those people in my back. I got Steve Franson, Jeff Rogers. I'm trying to think of the Cressingers. Those amazing people that helped us. Jeff Farnell, you were there too in WLP. Anyways, so after getting in practice, and everything was going great, I realized that it was my job not only to serve my patients, but also to serve the profession. In New Hampshire, we have an amazing state to practice in. It's very philosophical. It's one of the few states in the country that you can actually get CE credits in philosophy and have them go, towards your certification. And it's very, you can adjust people for wellness. It's an amazing state. And the only reason why it's an amazing state is because of all the people who worked extremely hard before me to make it that way. Because it wasn't always that way. Back in the day, when I first joined, it's called the New Hampshire Chiropractic Society, and there's also the New Hampshire Chiropractic Association. So we'll just say the association is more like the ACA and the society is more like the ICA. And I knew they were mortal enemies. They hated each other, but I philosophically aligned more obviously with the society, so I joined them. But I never really knew the back history. And then one day I was at the Palmer Mansion taking a tour, and I noticed in the dining room, you'll see it yourself, there's a silver tray of cups. Like, it looks really expensive, beautiful. It's all pure silver. And I looked at the little card. It says the New Hampshire Chiropractic Association, like 1948, gift to BJ. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. Those guys, they really gave BJ a gift. Like, they're so anti-chiropractic. And I kind of went home and talked to Gary Walsterman. You may know him. He's the old president of the ICA. And he practiced in New Hampshire. And I'm like, Gary, why did the association give BJ like a gift? He's like, well, back in 1948, there was only one group. He's like, we split like in the 60s. I'm like, you split in the 60s? Like, why? And the moral of the story is, back in the 60s, there was a big movement for what was called a community chiropractic. You might have heard of it. It's called Box in the Wall or God People Chiropractic. And there were a lot of chiropractors that were doing that in New Hampshire, because in Mass, it was still illegal. So we would have monster practices on the border of New Hampshire and Massachusetts, where people would drive buses up. The Bain brothers, you might have heard of them, and they were over 1,000 a week. We used to have Joe Felicia practice in New Hampshire. Actually, his partner is still practicing in New Hampshire. And so this movement of just, giving, serving, pay what you can. We're just going to adjust you, your whole family. It doesn't matter. We're going to, bring a bus from Massachusetts up. That really made some chiropractors uneasy. They were the ones that thought it was unprofessional. They didn't like it. And so all the straights just said, okay, we're going to leave. And they formed their own society. And that's what happened. But after a few years, the association realized that they were divided. They weren't as big anymore. And the society was more powerful. They decided, not more powerful, but gaining more numbers. They decided to join back together. And so the society said, all right, if you're willing to play nice, we'll come back with you. Well, they weren't back very long. And there were some people from the Chiropractic Association who were behind the scenes trying to change the scope of chiropractic in New Hampshire to the same scope that National College used. And when that was found out, they called a meeting, they got lawyers involved, and there was a lot of arguing, and the straights once again just said, that's it, we're out. And we've never looked back. And that was back in the 70s, and they would battle. Like, the other side would try and put legislation through, and we'd have lobbyists and fight them head to head. It got ugly. I mean, I've been blessed. I've been president of the society for 9 years. 9 years, and I haven't had to deal with any of that stuff. Mostly because the other group isn't that way that much anymore. We're still staying separate. We're not joining together, but they're not as antagonistic, let's just say. But my service is to keep the society pure, to move it forward, to make sure that New Hampshire stays great. We've had this, myself and a few other younger docs that have taken over the role of president and vice president, because the people before us, they just worked so hard for so many years. Gary Walsman was one of them. Sophia and William Heffenreffer. God, off the top of my head, I can't think of everyone else, but they did a lot of work to make it so that it's good for us right now. And it's the same thing on the national level. Like, I've been state rep for the ICA since 2012, maybe? Yeah, 2012. And is the ICA perfect? Absolutely not. But it's the only thing we got, and you just can't quit. You got to keep making it better, because that's the foundation. And in the last 9 years, the energy, we've had people like Steve and both Brian's, Lieberman, Moriarty. A lot of DE guys have been joining, and the energy's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Pete Gay, there he is. Yeah, he's a member from Maine. And it's just like, I feel like it's my calling, like that you can't abandon it. Eventually, obviously, I will step down. I don't do this because I have a power trip. I do it because right now I'm the only one who's probably willing to do it in the state. And I do enjoy it, but I'll tell you, it's very easy to get caught up in your practice, just going in, serving your patients, loving your patients day to day, getting in and out. No one likes politics. It's boring. no one likes policy, all that. Oh my God, it's awful. But we suffer through it, because if we don't, the other side will fill that vacuum. And so, I guess my call of action for you would be, if you have two groups in your state or more, definitely join one that is philosophically sound, at least the most philosophically sound, and then get your buddies together, and then you can just flip it. If you only have one, like I think Maine only has one PK, you guys should just join it and just take it over. It's much easier to take over an organization than it is to start one from the grassroots. But sometimes you do have to do that. So that's an option as well. But remember that, we have to do as much work on the profession as we do on our practice. And that's about it. I don't know how long I've gone, 16 minutes. I'm going to call it it. So Brian, I'm done. So thank you.
Love it, buddy. Thank you so much. Thanks for all you do, man. We appreciate you. You've been working hard with the ICA, man, for a long time. It is a thankless, crappy job, and also your state association president. So I feel you, man. But we appreciate all you do, and thanks for bringing us up to date, man. Let us know a little bit about you tonight, man. We appreciate you.
All right.
Have a great freaking week, and next week, Melissa Crago, and we'll see you then. Later, brother.
Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.